Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I am here in Florida right now visiting my grandma because she didn't come up to New York for Christmas this year. So I thought I'd come down and visit her, and I thought it would be the perfect time to sit down and film a Q&A. Haven't done this in a while, and I figured I needed to update you guys on some things and just answer your questions. So I asked you guys on Instagram, and I have all the questions written here. So let's just get into it. The first question is, what are your plans for 2020? I think by far my biggest goal is to teach more yoga. As you guys know, I got certified in this past year, and I've done a little bit of teaching, but the past year I've really just focused on strengthening my own practice and really building up my confidence and feeling like I have the tools to share. And I feel like I'm finally at that point where I feel like I have all the right tools to start teaching. I held my first workshop in the Netherlands a few months ago, and I thought it went really well. It was supposed to be 2 hours, it ended up being 3 hours long, and it was kind of like a mini retreat where we did meditation, journaling, yoga, a little bit of sharing. So yeah, one of my biggest goals is definitely to teach more yoga. And besides that, I want to post more videos on my channel. I know a lot of you guys have noticed that I've kind of been slacking on my videos, but I want to be a little bit more consistent and post every week, hopefully. Alright, sticking with the theme of yoga, the next question is, what are some tips for starting a yoga/meditation practice? In my personal opinion, I think the best way to introduce yourself to yoga or meditation is to try to find a class and take a class with a teacher in real life. Because there's so many awesome online resources, but I think to really get the feel for what the practice is supposed to feel like and to have the community and the vibe of taking, oh my gosh, these birds are really going crazy. But to have really the feeling of taking a class with other students and to be able to have a teacher make adjustments and to give you personalized advice, I think it just doesn't compare to taking a class online. Although, once you really do get the feel for it and you figure out what different postures are supposed to feel like and look like in your body, then you can take classes online, and that's awesome as well. But I'd say when you're just starting out, if you have access to it, I think the best way is to actually go find a class. And keep in mind that there's so many different styles and so many different teaching styles. So if you take a class and you don't click with the teacher or you don't feel like that style is right for you, definitely try another style or another teacher. With that said, if you don't have access to a yoga class, or if you are just looking for some good online yoga resources, I would recommend yogagirl.com. It's created by Rachel Brathen, or Yoga Girl, and there's tons of different teachers on there, tons of different styles, different levels, something for everyone. I've been a member since they first launched, and I take their classes all the time. I would definitely recommend it. The next question is, what are some tips for living a more sustainable lifestyle? So there's the 3 R's to live by. There's reduce, reuse, and recycle, in that order. So first, we need to stop buying so much stuff, because we don't need so much stuff. It's not what makes us happy. We very much live in a consumer society that makes you feel like you need to buy new things all the time, but we need to stop buying so much. And then we need to reuse, so for the things that we do buy, to try to repurpose them. So say you buy a jar of peanut butter, afterwards, instead of just throwing out or recycling that jar, seeing if you can find another purpose for it. And then the last option is to recycle. However, recycling is not as amazing as a lot of people think it is, because most of what we recycle actually doesn't end up being recycled in the way that we think it does. I will link some resources down below if you want to see more about where our recycling actually goes, but that should really be the last option. And besides that, we need to all eat a lot less meat, and we need to stop using single-use plastic. If you guys have any other tips of what we should be doing in our daily lives to be more sustainable, leave it in the comments down below. Alright, the next question is, should I invest in a nice travel backpack, or will a rolling suitcase work just fine? So I would say it totally depends on what kind of trip you're taking. If you're somewhere where you maybe aren't going to be traveling around a lot, or when you are traveling around it's going to be kind of easy to get from point A to point B, then I would say a suitcase is totally fine. It can almost be sometimes more convenient because you won't have to have it on your back. However, if you're on a more rugged trip, let's say backpacking in Asia, where you're going to be having to walk on more rough terrain where a rolling suitcase would not be ideal, I would say a travel backpack is definitely worth it. So it really just depends on what you're going to be doing and what you think would be most manageable. Did you take a gap year before college, and if so, would you recommend it? I personally did not take a gap year. I went straight to college. But I would recommend it for people who have no idea what they want to study and want to take some time to figure that out, or people who don't know whether they actually want to go to college yet, because it's a huge investment, especially here in the US, and you don't want to just go and then end up deciding that you actually didn't really want to study that or whatever it might be. What are the best non-fast fashion clothing and bathing suit brands? I need your help with this because I have not stepped foot inside a Forever 21 or an H&M in the longest time. I definitely don't want to support those brands anymore. Although I think H&M has some kind of initiative where they're supposed to be more green by 2030. I'm not totally sure. But in general, I just don't really buy that many clothes anymore. And if I do, I try to buy them secondhand or try to make sure that they are somewhat ethical. Although, of course, I'm not perfect, and I definitely have bought clothes that are probably made in places that don't have the best situations. So I will recommend an app called Good On You. It's really awesome. It gives you the rating for ethics and working conditions and a whole bunch of other stuff on different brands. You can just search the brand, or they also have recommendations on what brands are the best and have the best ratings. I think it's probably also a website, but I'll also link that down below. We all have to start getting more educated on where our clothes are made, and we really want to invest in good, high quality pieces that may be more expensive but will last way longer. That's definitely what I'm trying to do at the moment. What are the least expensive destinations that you would recommend? In my personal experience, I think the most affordable area of the world is Southeast Asia. It's also just so backpacker friendly and just easy to get around. You'll meet so many other travelers. Everything is so affordable. I think the most inexpensive country was probably Vietnam that I visited. But if you're smart and you budget correctly and you stay in hostels and you eat pretty cheap, your money can last so long. What are your favorite songs at the moment? I would say one of my favorite songs is Let It Breathe by Rob Ricardo, which one of you guys on Instagram recommended him to me after I said I really loved Trevor Hall, and I love his music, so yeah, give that song a listen. It's really beautiful. And then I've been listening to kind of an old song that's called One Lovely Day by Citizen Cope. And I've also discovered this singing group that's called Beautiful Chorus, and they sing mantras. So they're singing the same set of words over and over again, but their voices are so beautiful, and I like to listen to them when I'm just relaxing or doing yoga. So I will put all of those songs I just said also in the description. What are some pros and cons of doing yoga teacher training in Rishikesh, India? So I would say the pros definitely outweigh the cons. The pros are that it's the birthplace of yoga. It's probably one of the most authentic experiences you can have. I think one of the biggest pros is that your spiritual experience doesn't stop when you walk out of the school, because everybody in Rishikesh is on some kind of spiritual journey and everyone's kind of on the same wavelength. So the whole month you're super immersed in the whole experience. The teachers were amazing. I learned so much. I would say the cons were that there are almost no female teachers, which is just the standard. So it would have been nice to have a few female teachers. And then I can only speak for my particular school because I'm not sure if it's this way at all schools, but a lot of people who come to Rishikesh for yoga are coming just for themselves and they don't necessarily want to teach, which is totally fine. However, our program didn't necessarily teach us how to teach. It more taught us how to strengthen and deepen our own practice. So while I definitely learned so much about yoga itself, I felt like I didn't necessarily have all the right tools to start teaching. Those are the pros and cons I can think of. I would definitely recommend it. It's also probably the most affordable option for yoga teacher training in the whole world. So yeah. Okay, a lot of people were asking, where is your home base now? Are you still in the Netherlands? Are you still with your boyfriend? And yes, I'm still with my boyfriend. I've just kind of decided to keep that part of my life a little bit more private, just because I didn't really want the additional pressure. Not that I really felt pressure, I just felt like, I don't know, Tim is such not a social media person, and it just kind of felt better to keep that offline. But yes, we're still together. Yes, we're still trying to live in the Netherlands. I was there all fall from September to December, but we're still working on getting the visa. It's really complicated and it's a long process, so we're still working that out. I can't go back there for a little while because my tourist visa has ran up. So yeah, it's not easy dating someone from a different country because Tim has a full-time job there now. He can't travel with me as much as he used to, and if we want to be together, I have to be there. So we're still figuring all of that out. I'll keep you guys updated, but that's the deal with that. As far as my home base is, I would say half my clothes are in the Netherlands and half my clothes are in New York, and the other half, if there's another half, is always packed in a suitcase. So that's kind of my life at the moment. What places do you still really want to visit? This year I would love to go to Scandinavia and visit Norway and Sweden. Specifically in the summer, I just think the nature there is unbelievable in the mountains, and Tim and I met a couple when we were in the Philippines who are from Norway, so maybe we can go visit them. That would be awesome. Do you have any tips for a healthy long-distance relationship? So I would say the two biggest things for this is one, communication, which is important in all relationships, but especially when you're long distance because you most likely have different schedules, you could be on different time zones, so sometimes you really have to work to schedule time in and to schedule quality time. So sometimes you could just call each other, but both of you are kind of busy and your mind is elsewhere, and then you don't actually have that time that you need. So if you find a time where you can be like, we're gonna put everything else aside and have like a FaceTime date, I think that's really important just to make sure that you stay connected, because it's really easy to kind of drift apart. Life gets busy. And then I also think it's really important to have something to work towards, an end goal of sorts. So maybe that's a time where you know that you're going to be moving to the same place or maybe visiting each other. But I think the bigger picture end goal is really important, to know that there's a finish line and to know that the long distance is worth it and that eventually you're going to be able to be together. What is the best item to bring on a hiking trip? Well, I am not a hiking expert. The only major hike I've ever done, and it's not even that major, was my hike to Machu Picchu. If I had to pick a single item, I don't know if that's possible, maybe a water bottle, but I would say really important to have comfortable hiking shoes that are broken in beforehand, really comfortable socks. Socks are very important. Don't underestimate a good pair of socks. Maybe a hat and sunscreen. Yeah. How is the foreign cat doing? Thank you for asking. He's doing amazing. He's in the Netherlands right now. We're talking about Puff. We got so lucky because we adopted him when he was so little that we couldn't really tell what his personality would be like, and I feel like you can never really tell with a cat, but he's the most chill cat, has the best personality, he's really funny, and I really miss him. Alright, I think this is going to be the last question. It's kind of a mix of a few questions in one, but basically people want to know how to meet friends when solo traveling, general tips for female solo travelers. I feel like I could probably make a whole video on tips for solo traveling, but I will say that if you've never traveled by yourself, it may seem really intimidating to think about how in the world you could possibly meet other people, and you may be scared that you're going to be lonely and alone all the time. If you put yourself in the position to meet people when you're solo traveling, like staying in a hostel or just going and doing things where other people are, you're gonna meet people. It's almost hard not to meet people. I wanted to share a story about my last trip in Berlin. I don't know if you guys noticed, but towards the end of the video I said, oh, I just met this girl on the side of the street. And I literally met this girl on the street. I was standing underneath this building just trying to figure out where I was going next while it was raining, and this really sweet girl came up to me. She noticed that I was by myself and she was just like, hey, are you traveling alone? I'm traveling alone too. Like, what are you doing today? Do you want to hang out? And she even said she would have never done that back at home, but because she's traveling and because we were traveling, it's just not weird to do that. So yeah, she came up to me and I was like, cool, like I'm going to this flea market, do you want to come? And we ended up spending the whole day till like almost midnight together. Maybe you wouldn't do it at home, but really no one cares. And if you go up to somebody and they're like, ew, who are you? Then just be like, okay, sorry, and then go on with your day. So you really have nothing to lose. You have to just put yourself out there. You will meet people. And then general tips for female travelers or just solo travelers. You just have to have a certain level of awareness, a little bit of street smarts. You can't just totally let your guard down at all times. I would say keep everything organized, make sure that you have a set place for your money and your passport, have offline maps downloaded so that you always know where you are. If you didn't know, on Google Maps, you can select a whole area or a whole city and completely download the maps offline so that you will never be lost if you don't have Wi-Fi or service. Although if you are going on an extended trip, I would definitely recommend making sure your phone is unlocked so that you can get a SIM card in the country that you're in, only if you're staying there for an extended period of time. Yeah, besides that, I think solo traveling is a lot less scary than people think, but I totally understand how it can be super intimidating. But you just gotta do it, and then you'll see. But yeah, that's the last question that I'm going to answer. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope to post more on my channel this year. I really appreciate all of your support, and if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. I love you all, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!